What's up, everybody? You are back on the other side with me, Mike G, and today I'm bringing you the story of one of the greatest MMA fighters to ever live. No one defines struggle and redemption like the godfather of ground and pound. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark the Hammer Coleman. How's it going, Mark?
Never better, brother. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to jump right into it. I want to know what it was like for you as a child growing up in Ohio.
Um, I just knew right away that I wanted to get bigger than everybody, so nobody could pick on me and bully me. So as a little kid, I knew that size mattered, and I could do 100. I could do 100 push-ups in a row at the age of 5. And then
Wow.
I love sports. I was all state in football, baseball, and then in wrestling I was all state. So sports were my life. Competing is all I really wanted to do, and I never liked losing. It was horrible. So I worked very hard as a kid. I had a set of weights in the basement by the age of 10. So I was down there all by myself plenty of times.
Getting it. All right, man. When did you get into wrestling?
Sixth grade, they didn't have a bunch of bitty stuff back then. So in the sixth grade, I didn't compete in the sixth grade, but my mom was secretary at the school, so I was allowed to go up there and wrestle with the seventh graders. So I got my first real taste of it in the sixth grade. I competed in a couple tournaments in the summer before that, but in sixth grade, just got beat up by the seventh and eighth graders and ninth graders. But then seventh grade was the year I started competing junior high. So I made the team. I started, and uh, it was tough, man. It was I had to learn the ropes, and I got whooped plenty of times, but I knew that was for me. That was the sport for me.
Oh yeah, man. Um, Share a little bit about wrestling at Ohio State, your accolades, and how difficult it is to achieve the level you achieved in college wrestling.
Well, first, I didn't get recruited out of high school very heavily. Two-time state champ, one-time runner-up, and I went to a small school, so nobody even really knew who I was. Same thing in football. Football was my first love, but Ohio State didn't offer me no scholarship. They didn't even ask me to walk on.
Oh,
Um, but So I ended up going to Miami of Ohio. Um, Not my favorite choice. I didn't want to go there. It was a richer, preppier school, and wrestling wasn't on the top of their list. But I had to take
right.
the only scholarship I offered, and well, I just knew I had to wrestle my way out of there. So I had to get really, really good so I could transfer. And I started as a freshman. I went 25-10. And as a sophomore, I went 35-5, but I didn't place at nationals, didn't even make it to nationals. And by the time I was a junior, I planned on winning a couple of these national titles. I hadn't even placed or anything yet. And then my junior year, I ended up taking fourth. I wasn't even seeded. I ended up taking fourth in the country, and the three guys ahead of me were all seniors. So my senior year, I was coming back ranked number 1 in the country, transferred to Ohio State, redshirted a year, and just jumped right in there. I mean, it wasn't much of a change. I went to Ohio State, and by that time, I was ragged down everybody anyway. So that was the problem at Miami. Not enough training partners.
Right.
I could say the same about Ohio State, but a little bit better.
Gotcha. All right. I read somewhere that you discovered MMA sitting on the couch. How does that work? And talk about your transition to mixed martial arts.
Oh, I'm just 31 years old, living on campus at Ohio State. Still, I had nothing going on for myself. Wrestling was pretty much over at that point. And yeah, me and the buddies on the wrestling team were watching the first UFC, and that was it, man. That was my money. I told everybody that's my money, and my guys didn't flinch. They pretty much knew that was my money, and um, I just had to find a way to get in. So it took about three years to get in,
Wow.
and then 1996 at the Olympic trials, I lost in the semifinals. My Olympic chances are over. A manager approached me, took me in the room, and said I got a slot in 35 days at UFC 10. Um, I told him that's my spot. I said that's my spot. I'll win that. I'll beat Don Fry's ass. I said, who else you looking at? He said, Mark Kerr and Tom Erickson. And I told him I'll flat out whoop their ass. And I said, give me that contract. I didn't need to read it or anything. I should have read it, but if I would have read it, I might not have got the spot because the other two guys had to take it home and read it. And so I was in. So 35
Awesome.
days later, I walked off the mat and walked into the cage.
Wow, that's amazing. I've spent days trying to find a better UFC debut than yours. Tell everybody exactly what went down at UFC 10.
3 fights one night. The first fight was against a karate guy, Modi Hornstein.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all on the line right there because there was a karate school in every corner of the street. And us wrestlers, we didn't like karate people because they were, we just knew it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work against us. That's for damn sure. But now I'm facing a world champion, and I was feeling it, but I took him down and dominated him rather easily in 2 minutes. Next round was Big Daddy Gary Goodrich, 6'3", 280-pound big strong man, and but just going into this, I knew I was winning it, and I knew these guys just didn't have the talent to hang with me. Same with Big Daddy. He didn't have no wrestling skills. If you can't wrestle, you can't fight. And it was an interesting fight, but I ragged out him. And then in the finals, Don the Predator Fry, a fan favorite, my favorite. It just really wasn't fair. He's 215 pounds, and I'm about 235. And headbutts were legal. I pretty much visualized exactly what happened. I just had no clue it was going to take me that many headbutts and that many punches to stop this man. But he would have never quit. He would have never tapped out, and finally Big John stopped it. And at the time, that was as big as it gets for me. That was huge because I knew walking out of that cage that day, I knew that this sport was going to be the biggest sport in the world because I knew the whole world loves combat sports and fighting. And I just visualized what it is now is pretty much what I visualized.
Wow, that's awesome, man. UFC 12, another amazing night for you. Talk a little bit about Dan Severn as an opponent and what you accomplished that night in Dothan, Alabama.
Well, we flew to New York. It was originally scheduled for New York. First ever heavyweight championship, me versus Severn. Again, my confidence, because now I had about 7 months of training in, and my shape was incredible. And when I'm in shape, I'm fearless. And Dan Severn, very tough opponent, but I just didn't see him having anything for me. He's 38. I seen him as past his prime, and I was in my prime, ultimate prime right there. That night I could have beat anybody in the world for sure. And it's the only fight that I was looking to punch the guy before taking him down. Almost every other fight, almost every fight in my career, except that one, I was looking to knock him out. And my first punch landed right on the button. And Severn told me, he said he's seen 3 of me after that. That's why he took that ill-advised double leg shot on me, because I just crushed him. I ran him over, and I could have ground and pounded him, but I don't know why I didn't. But I just seen the opening of exactly what I got. I planned on using that scarf choke, side headlock choke. I was practicing it backstage in warm-ups quite a bit, and poor Randleman and Wes Sims and Hinkle, I was cranking their neck off backstage, man. So and I give Severn credit because he did fight it for about 45 seconds, which was a pretty damn long time. Most people I was tapping out almost immediately. So that was, it was supposed to be in New York, but the night before the show, New York canceled it on us. Bob Meyerowitz and the UFC people back then, he loaded everybody up on 2 big jet planes, and in the middle of the night, he flew us to Alabama, and we got in about 4 a.m. and that's it. I mean, we just did it there, and I didn't care if it was in a empty building. I just really wanted it to happen because I knew the magnitude of what this is going to mean being the first.
Yeah. Wow. After a couple tough losses, you make your way over to Pride. What did you do on May 1st, 2000 at the Tokyo Dome in the ring to remind the world that you were
losses? We should probably talk about the losses. So
I didn't know how much time you had.
After I beat Dan Severn, it went to my head. Three in a row. I'm now getting attention from the ladies. I'm getting attention from everybody, and I couldn't handle it. And most people know that I am a recovering alcoholic. So basically, after I beat Severn, I started drinking, and that led to the loss to Marie Smith, the most humbling day of my life, athletic-wise. Just humbling, humiliating. And then I blew my knee out 2 weeks after that, getting ready for the rematch. And then I came back from the knee injury in like 5 months. And they changed opponents on me 6 times in the last 2 weeks. So mentally, I was very, very shook up.
Sure.
My confidence was definitely broken, and I was having thyroid issues physically, and it just wasn't my night for sure. Although I almost won that match, but I was mentally not prepared. Physically, I wasn't prepared, and we seen a violent head kick, which, you know, it's in the Hall of Fame. It is what it is. I got up from that, which not many people would have. It was very violent, and then, you know, my confidence is shaking. But I trained a couple more months real hard for Pedro Hizo. And I felt like I beat him for sure. But really, in hindsight, that's one fight that I was looking to not lose. And I wasn't really dominating to try to win. So it wasn't a dominating win, but I definitely won that fight. And then I get cut, and then I'm out of a job, and I don't know what to do.
Right. That's when you made your way over to Pride and proved to everyone that you are still the baddest heavyweight on the planet.
Yeah, I had a lot to prove. I was pretty much counted out for the dead by everybody. And even myself, I had some doubts, but it was the thyroid really shook me up because I didn't know what was wrong for a long time. And it was really, really dragging me out. But once I figured out what it was and got my body working again, I knew the only thing I did wrong was I didn't train. You know what I mean? And injuries, things happen, but lack of training, I knew I still had it, but I had to get an opportunity. So I went over to Japan. I did the Takata fight. I had to do that fight to get in the organization. Everybody knows I lost on purpose, but I had to do it. I don't regret it. I did it. It's over. It's in the past. But then I had to beat Ricardo Moraes, a 6'9", 275-pound Brazilian black belt, and I had to beat him to get into the tournament. And I put it together pretty good for him. I dominated him, and now I'm in the Grand Prix.
All right, how did you view your lineup of fights for the Grand Prix, and what were the results that night?
Well, first round was by itself. I fought Masanari Satake, a K1 veteran, and pretty much, you know, I knew I was going to crush him. So that was one of my only gimmies my whole career. I fought the who's who of fighting, but Satake. Then the first round of the Pride Grand Prix, now it's a 16-man tournament. The first round I had Akira Soji, who upset, I think, Metzger. So, and it was controversial too. Metzger would have probably been a little tougher, but Akira Soji is another guy that I was going to stand with him. He was so short and so small that I was going to stand with him. So I mixed both things in. I dominated him, but I wasn't sure if I won because the Pedro Hizo fight stuck in my head for a long time once you get screwed like that by the
Yeah.
judges, you're never the same. So, but I beat Soji, and then I had Fuji in the second round. Was supposed to be Mark Kerr. I thought it was going to be Mark Kerr, which that would have been the biggest fight of the night right there. Me and
Yeah.
Kerr.
Absolutely.
I believe I believe it would have been a tough fight, but I had Mark Kerr's number in my opinion. I beat him 3 times in wrestling, and I had helped him train in MMA, and I was very comfortable that I was going to be able to find a way to beat him. And I don't think he was very confident that he could beat me. So that happened.
Right.
So, but he lost to Fujita. Fujita was hurt. They should have pulled Fujita out and put a replacement in, but they didn't do it. They blew it. They told him he had to fight me to get his paycheck. So he fought me and they threw in the towel in 2 seconds. It was a 2-second win. Nobody talks about it, but officially it's the fastest win in MMA history. So, and now I got Igor in the finals, and most fans are saying I had an easy route to the finals. It didn't matter. It don't matter. I knew I had Igor because I watched my teammate fight him over in Israel about 3 years earlier, Nick Nutter, wrestling buddy of mine, and I watched Nutter beat him up for 15 minutes before Igor came back and tapped him out with some headbutts. But I just knew I had Igor that night. I put in a year straight of training. I got off the booze, and when I get my shit together, when I'm in shape, and when my confidence is right, I don't get beat.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest win of my professional career, wrestling or MMA. That was the highlight for me, coming back from extinction, coming back and being able to tell everybody to shut the hell up. I'll let you know when I'm finished.
I want to talk about the Fedor fight. Of all the memories that I have of you and your career, the moment where your daughters came in to the ring with you touches me more than anything. Tell me about the Fedor fight and then that moment afterwards.
Well, that'd be the second Fedor fight. That's way fast forward towards the end of my career. And, well, it's the first time I had pride by the balls. I'd beaten Shogun Hua, and it was the last fight of my contract. They offered me a renewal, but it was pennies. And I told them to beat it. I said, I'm going to beat Shogun, and I'm going to have you. And I didn't tell him that, but that's what I thought. And sure enough, I broke Shogun's arm. I'm a free agent, and the UFC's calling me, not necessarily because they wanted me, but because they thought I was pretty much finished, but because they wanted to ruin Pride's plans for their first show in America. I was the only guy they had on the roster that was available to fight Fedor, and they knew it. But negotiations were real weird. It got confusing. I wanted to go back to the UFC. They offered me a 3-fight deal, but it was like the 3 fights total were less than what Pride had came up to. Pride came way up in that deal. And I told Dana just to come up a little bit, and I'm in. But something got mixed up, and they told me he wasn't coming up. It didn't make any sense. Find out later, I don't think they even talked to him. So I took the deal with Pride. And then, of course, UFC buys Pride. So that was a pretty stupid move. And Dana White, he called me to ask me if I signed with Pride. I told him, kinda. He said, what do you mean? I go, well, I told him I'm in. He goes, well, you didn't sign. He said, fly out here. Let's work something out. I didn't feel right about that. I told Dana I'm just going to stick with it. And Dana called me a dumbass. And when they bought Pride, he made me wait for about 1.5 years before they signed me to come back. But that's all right. That's the way it goes. You don't cross Dana. But
it's the business.
But to fight Fedor, it's the first fight without my shoes on. I didn't practice without my shoes on ever because we were told we can wear them. And when I got there, we couldn't wear them. People may say that's no big deal, but it literally took, 20-30% of my strength away from the grip on the feet. And then, not to make excuses, but Fedor was their guy. And it took me 8 minutes to take him down, A, because of the shoes, but B, because they let him grab onto the ropes every time I shot. So,
Hmm.
uh, so I was pretty beat up by the 8-minute mark when I finally took him down. I didn't have much left in the gas tank. I didn't have a good training camp. I was 43, so he put me in another sweet, sweet armbar, and then my daughters were thrown in the ring, and I had to become a dad real quick, and it was super cool in my opinion. It didn't bother me seeing them cry, this and that. I just wanted to comfort them. We got out of there. We got paid. We had a blast. And then I got abused by all the fans, calling me the worst dad in the world, and that
I
hurt.
remember
That,
that.
that hurt a lot. But with time, I realized I don't care about anybody that said that, because my daughter learned a valuable lesson that day,
Hmm.
and they carry it with them to this day. So let's
I got
go, man.
goosebumps, man.
Everybody's too soft. Everybody's too soft
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
My kids
I
are
think
tough.
that moment might be the greatest display of love that I've seen in a fight. It's one of the most special. My daughters have watched it. Um, as much as I would like to talk about all of your fights, we don't have that much time or enough orange octagon from Brawl Energy. But I, I wanted to mention the Randy Couture fight. I've interviewed Randy. He's one of my favorite guys. You fought him at
Yeah,
109, at UFC 109.
yeah.
I know you guys are still close. How special was it to go out against another legend? And did you know at the time that that would be your last fight?
It wasn't special at all, bro. That was a horrible night for me. Um, it wasn't meant to be. I had to cut the weight now, and the weight cut was actually too easy. Um, I did it. I was too close to weight. I was very small that night. I only weighed like 208 pounds because I messed the
Hmm.
whole weight cut up. And size to me was very important. I was confident. I only had like 50 days notice, so it was a short camp.
Hmm.
But I was confident until they mentioned his name to come into the ring, and then the crowd went nuts. And he's going to put me in a stranglehold, baby. And I heard his whole game plan. That's what he says he's going to do. He's going to take me down and choke me out. I said, nobody's taking me down. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? But sure enough, he got me down, and he jumped up into a rear naked choke so fast, I
Yeah.
didn't have time to do anything. I didn't even have time to tap. I was out that fast, and it was extremely disappointing, but I had no clue that was going to be my last fight. I planned on fighting another 5 years, even though I was having arthritis and hip pain.
Hmm.
If you just get a little therapy and you can deal with it. But the UFC cut me, which it, it really surprised me. In hindsight, not so much, but they cut me, and went to my doctor, and he told me I needed a hip replacement. And then that was it, man. I got the hip replacement, and it was rough for a long time.
Yeah.
I didn't have nothing keeping me from drinking, and my disease took over. And for the next 10 years, I didn't work out one time, and I drank pretty much every day for 10 years. And uh, I made it. I got through it. Wes Sims, my buddy, he had the courage to come drag me out of an extended stay hotel. He drugged me out, put me in the hospital. Then I went to rehab. That was the best decision I've ever made in my life. Without it, I would be dead for sure almost. But I checked in and I saved my life. And I'm very, very, very proud. It was the greatest decision I've ever made. And I fit
Hmm.
right in there. That's where I belonged. I wasn't in denial. And the Lord, he took away my obsession to drink, and now I use him every day to guide me, and I'm at total peace. I'm totally happy. I have everything I've ever needed. I feel like I have the best life in the world. I always did have a great life. I lived every man's dream, but I wasn't happy. I wanted
Right.
more, but in hindsight, I lived every man's dream. And anybody
Hmm.
says otherwise, well, maybe a couple people can say that wasn't a dream. But hey, man, fighting in the UFC and winning, it was the coolest thing I've ever done.
That's great, man. I love it. Um, what is the most important thing for you to do every day to make sure that you stay putting BMF belts on guys like Max Holloway and don't end up back in a bottle?
No, man, it's every day is right. It's one day at a time, but I got to wake up every morning and be grateful for what I have. And it's that really that simple. And I
Yep.
am grateful and I don't fake nothing. Every day seems to get better for me. Every day at some point throughout the day, at some point I always just sit there and say, man, this is the best day of my life. And
Yeah.
it is. Today included. Today was better than yesterday. How could it be better yesterday when yesterday was so great? But that's it. I got to give back. You got to change. You got
Yeah.
to work the system. You have to change. But most importantly, you have to give back. And that's what I love to do. I have this platform. I'm going to use it to help people get sober and beat mental addiction and drug addiction. And obviously, I'm not afraid to talk about my problem because
Mhm.
I know damn well almost every human being out there struggles mentally.
Mhm.
But it starts with a thought. And now when those negative thoughts, they still come in. I still have, not days, but I still have time
Sure.
where I'm not sure if I'm happy. But I just immediately, I got all kinds of things I'll do. I'll pray, I'll listen to Christian music, and soon I'll realize, what are you talking about, Mark? You got everything you need, man. My
Yeah.
daughters are my life. I got three beautiful daughters, Mackenzie, Morgan, and Skylar. And that's all. I care about a lot of things, but that's most important to me. And they're happy. I want to make them proud. I want to
Yeah.
make everybody proud.
Yeah. We can't forget about King Martello either.
Well, let's talk about the hammer first, brother.
Okay. Yeah.
The hammer, let's not forget about him. And then King Martello's in my life now. And yeah, it's cool, man. I love dogs. And he's as cool as Hammer almost.
Awesome. It's been a lot of fun watching him grow up. um, all your fans know about the fire, and I didn't want to ask you to tell the story again because I know you've told it. But what I do want to ask is, when you were in the fire and you couldn't see and you couldn't breathe, and even after you got out of the house, when you were maybe on the ground in the yard or in the hospital, having lived an amazing life, raising wonderful children, saving mom and dad, entertaining millions of people, what is it inside you that refuses to lay down and give up?
Oh, I don't know, man. That's just who I am. It's not an option. It's just not an option. And I never gave up, even when I was drinking and it got really bad. I still knew, I didn't know when, but I knew at some point I'm gonna get this fixed. And when I put my mind to something, I usually do it.
Yeah.
More than usually, I do it. So um, it's just something I'm so proud of, and something that I've learned so much from getting sober,
Yeah.
and I feel so much better. My head's clear, my taste buds work, everything is just better. Um,
Yeah.
uh, that was the only option in that fire. There was one time in that fire when I had been in there for quite some time, but I had already got my dad out, but now I'm trying to get my mom out, and we got lost in a room somehow. We got off path, and I opened my eyes, and it was by far the most terrifying, scariest thing I've ever
Yeah.
seen or witnessed in my life, and it didn't look good at all because I didn't know where the hell we was at, and it's ugly. And for a second or a couple seconds, I thought, for sure it's going to end here.
Yeah.
And because I couldn't imagine leaving my mom to get out. So I don't know what I'm so glad I didn't have to find out what I would have did if it got that bad, because I wouldn't want to get out without her getting out. So
Right.
that's just the way I am. I'm a fighter, born to fight, and I'm gonna be competing till the day I die. People telling me to slow down and enjoy life. Well, it's simply, you need to turn it up and enjoy life,
Yep.
because I feel amazing and you feel like shit because you ain't working out, you ain't doing nothing.
Yeah.
You're the one that don't get it. Sitting on the couch and relaxing is not a good time to me at all. I need to be busy. When you're a
Hmm.
recovering alcoholic, first thing they tell you is you got to stay busy. And
Yep.
I can't be busy enough. So whenever I ain't doing something, I will be exercising every day. Haven't missed a day in 2 years, minus the 2 days I was in a coma.
Right. Yeah. Those are excusable, Mark. um, I want to ask you some questions about Mark Coleman, the person. These aren't about the fighter, the fan favorite, or anything like that. These are questions, normal people questions that I want to know about you. The first one is, what do you like better, pulled pork or brisket?
Very, very close. Very
Okay.
close. Both of those two are on the top of my list at any given day. I like a
Okay.
little bit of both, to be honest with you. Maybe put a little barbecue sauce on it, but pulled pork and brisket, you can't beat that.
Hmm.
Only thing that beats that to me, my favorite is barbecue spare ribs. That's my
Okay.
favorite meal. And of course, I like a big steak, prime rib, bone-in steak. That
Yeah.
that would be ribs are number one, the steak is number two, the pork and the brisket, they're right there. They're all very, very close, but those are my top foods.
Awesome. If you ever make your way down to Fayetteville, Arkansas for any reason, give me a shout. I prepare world champion winning barbecue all day
All
long.
right. Hey, you got
That's
to get
what
me there
I do.
somehow. You
I
got to
pulled
get
over
me there
400 pounds
somehow.
of pork today.
Figure out a way to get me there, bro.
I'll work on it. All right, my next question, both in their prime, who wins, Ali or Tyson?
Hmm. Tyson's my all-time favorite. He was he was the guy that I wanted to be growing up. When I wanted what he had. He was
Sure.
he was the baddest man on the planet, but I knew he wasn't. I wanted that title somehow, but there was no way to get it. Um, I know I followed Mike Tyson his whole life, his whole career. He still motivates me, and he had demons himself, lots of them
Yeah.
that probably held his career way back. I can't imagine how great he would have been if he would have been disciplined and stayed away from the. Everybody chases the women and they chase it with booze,
Hmm.
except the goats. I mean, I think me and Tyson both could have been goats, but we both chose to take another route. I'm not
Right.
I'm not that proud of my career. I call it more of a journeyman career because um, when I put it together, I won some big fights. But what about the rest of the career, man? I was a mess. I really didn't even train a lot of times.
All right. Better movie, Kickboxer or Bloodsport?
I don't know. I don't remember either one of them too much.
All right.
That
Who would have a better chance at beating you in the cage, Bruce Lee or Chuck Norris?
neither neither one
Awesome.
of them.
All right. In your bathroom at home, TP over or behind the roll?
Don't matter. Just wipe.
As long as it's there. All right. Again, both in their prime, George St. Pierre or Anderson Silva?
Mm, that's a big one. That's as big as it gets, and
Mhm.
that's almost impossible for anybody to pick. Who the hell had a great camp? Who shows up confident? Who turns it up that night? It's just a guess. So I'm gonna go with both guys.
Awesome. Fight to a draw in an epic battle. All right. Who do you root for, the Browns or the Bengals?
I've been a Browns fan my whole life, but I got to meet Joe Burrows, and he's such a
Okay.
class act, and he's offered me tickets to come anytime. So
Wow.
it's tightened up quite a bit. I'm still a Browns fan, but Bengals, I love them right there as well.
I've been a Browns fan since I was 4 years old, watching Bernie Kosar throw the ball to Webster Slaughter and hand it off to Kevin Mack.
Yes, sir. What a
All right.
what a talented threesome right there.
Yeah, they were good. Um, If you're going on vacation, do you prefer a cruise ship or ski resort?
Neither one.
Okay, where are you going on vacation then?
By plane. I've been blessed to go to Brazil. I've been to Japan. I've been to Russia. I've been to South Korea. I've been to Amsterdam. Um, I was just so freaking blessed. That's the best thing about my job was I got to travel to other countries. I didn't get to see much because I was always busy, but just
Sure.
and then the biggest thing was when Pride put us in first class. That's when you feel special, man. Because now
Right.
that's a trip. Now that's a cool ass trip. But um, no, I don't ski. And what was the other one you said?
Cruise ship.
I don't want no part of the cruise ship ski. Now I could do
All
without
right.
either one of those two.
All righty. What is something you enjoy doing that most people don't know about?
Hmm. I like. I'm a big food critic. I've been watching cooking channels since I was a wrestler. That's what I would do in between workouts, lay there and watch these cooking channels. I couldn't eat the shit, but I sure in the hell love. I love watching these chefs. I'm a big fan of all chefs, and I love. I love going out to dinner with my daughters. It's my favorite thing to do is go out to eat with them. And I earn the meal, man. I fast every day for 24 hours, and then I eat big. And
Hmm.
it's all I think about right now. I can't wait to go eat. By the way, man, I'm so excited. But I like going out to them. And I like judging and rating the food, giving it a score,
Sure.
and I love doing that. I watch David Portnoy do it, and I get a kick out of his pizza reviews. But I
Hmm.
try to score things, and I really appreciate quality food. That's
Hmm.
another thing best about traveling is
Yeah.
tasting all that food. And when I was in Japan, the president liked me and ran me quite a bit, so he took us out to eat quite a bit, and
Nice.
it was unbelievable. Sometimes he wouldn't pay us 5,000 extra for the fight in negotiations, but he sure spent $5,000 on us in a restaurant, no problem.
Makes him feel better doing it that way. All right. Who would you put on your Mount Rushmore of MMA fighters?
I guess Jones, John Bones Jones, Fedor, George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, and
Awesome.
Khabib. Khabib's in there, but I don't like the fact that he quit. But what he did is GOAT status.
Hmm.
Um, Now you got a bunch of guys waiting to pounce on that. Like Islam, I love him right now. I love
Hmm.
them Russians, man, because growing up as
Yeah.
a kid, I would watch the World Cup wrestling in Toledo, Ohio, which they sent the Russians. Everybody sent their number one team. So as a kid, I got to drive an hour and watch the greatest wrestlers in the world from Russia, and I was
Yeah.
mesmerized by their stoic look and just
Hmm.
how intimidating they were. And I
Yep.
knew that's who I was going to have to beat to be a world champion.
Yeah. Those the Dagestanis are awesome.
Russians, not Dagestanis.
Okay. There you go. My bad.
Well,
In
both of them, but I'm saying they used to be. I went to it was the USSR in 1989. 1 year out of college, I went to a 21-day trip to Russia. Um, the trip got canceled because Desert Storm War just started. The trip had gotten canceled, but we're all sitting in New York with our tickets and shit. So Dave Schultz and Chris Campbell, two of the elitist wrestlers of all time,
Mhm.
they talked the airlines into letting us on the plane, but only 10 of us got on the plane, and about 20 people went back home. And we called ourselves the Renegades. And it was 21 days of 20 degrees below weather in Siberia, no heat, no food. And I'm not lying when I say no heat. You're in the wrestling arena wrestling and you can see your breath. That's how cold it was. They
Wow.
just did they didn't have nothing. It was just a poor situation. and that's when they split up and turned into all these countries. But that was cool.
Wow, that's awesome, man. In the future, when people look back on the career of Mark Coleman and your life, what do you hope your legacy is?
Mm. Um, yeah, I guess that's for other people to decide, but it's it was my whole life to be famous, a famous athlete. I wanted to be the best athlete in the world. I wanted to be rich and famous, but I wanted it for all the wrong reasons. Just it, it made doing bad things easier. But now I like my little bit of fame that I have because I have so many fans, and I'm here now to help people, and I love giving back. You feel a lot better giving than receiving. People just don't know it. I know it
Yeah.
now, and there's just so many people that I can help out there, and that's my mission. God's not done with me. He's got a lot of things planned for me. I got to lead people to his I got to lead people to him. And also, I got to help people get sober and drug free and work on mental health. And I'm not afraid to talk out. That's the biggest problem with this disease is most men are terrified to admit that they have any problems.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of this. I have no fear. I could care less if anybody judges me. I'm a tough son of a bitch. I have some mental problems. And don't make me weak. Trust me. Don't make me weak at all. And I just want to help as many people as I can and make my daughters proud, make a lot of people proud, and stay sober. Sober's the coolest thing ever. I can do anything if I just stay sober, but it's going to it is an everyday battle. I still think about it every day. And I still wonder, now that I know all this about the disease, I wonder, can I just go be a normal drinker? But then what I've learned about the disease, and I know very well, no, I can't. It's not an option. One don't sound good. Six might sound good the first night, but it's always going to be more. So it's just not an option. So it's a daily battle, but it's a fight that I'm going to win. It's the toughest fight of my life. I'm going to win this bitch.
I believe you, Mark, and I applaud you for everything you've done to achieve sobriety and to help people. What is the best way for fans of yours and friends to keep up with you and all the things you're involved in these days? I've seen Car-Jitsu, I've seen the wheelchair boxing, I've seen the putt and putt.
That wheelchair
that
boxing.
awesome.
That was the coolest thing I've done in a long time. My adrenaline was fired that night.
You were amped up.
The promoter said that we're gonna have some fun. I said, well, but my idea of fun is not you hitting me hitting you. And to be quite honest with you, it was everything I could do to hold back and not hurt this guy. And I did actually hurt him. I did actually hurt him a couple of times, but I just really, I like violence and I like hurting people. Luckily, I was able to control it because it was a situation where nobody needed to get hurt. But that was awesome. I'm gonna go back and do that again soon. But the slap fighting, I'm good friends with the inventor, JT Tilley. Slap fighting, I've been following it for 6 years. I love it. I do the commentary for it. Car-Jitsu, I do the commentary for that. They got tire wrestling, guerrilla games. This guy invents these sports and he gets them on TV. People don't like slap fighting. Well, too bad. Don't watch it. I get to know these guys. I've got to know them for 2 years now, and it's a family. It's a huge family, and it gives these guys reason to be happy and reason to live and reason to stay out of trouble. So I love that about it. And if you follow the rules and you do clean slaps, it's still violent, but nobody's been to the hospital in 6 years for our organization. So it's dangerous, but it ain't no more dangerous than the UFC. Give me a break,
Right.
man.
Yeah.
These guys get hit 100 times a night.
Yeah.
You
Exactly.
don't really practice getting slapped. So they
Right.
get slapped a maximum 7 to 10 times in one night every 2 or 3 months, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, next time you're in Branson for the slap fight, give me a shout. I'm only 2 hours south. I'll come visit.
We just had one last week, but anyways, yeah, people, I get a big kick out of doing Instagram. It's part of my daily routine. It's part of me staying busy. I schedule time in there. It's good for my business, but it's also good because that's where I get back to so many people. I do my best to get back to everybody in one way or another, at least like their comment or whatever. I like doing it. It takes up some of my time, but I just find that I made a lot of friends. I don't know them, but I've made a lot of people happy just by getting back to them. And that's the beauty of it. I can make people happy just by taking a picture with them. So my fans are the best. They've come to my rescue many times. They literally came to my rescue. When I woke up from that fire, I had no clue. I thought it was just going to be me, my mom, and dad. And I woke up and found out the whole world was praying for me and pulling for me. And I can't tell you how amazing that made me feel because, and I'm glad and I'm happy to be able to say I don't really remember ever turning down a fan for a picture or an autograph unless I was running late for a fight or something. Then I had to say I got to go. But you know what I mean? I would never turn down a fan unless something critical was happening. But I love and appreciate them. I just want everybody to be able to feel like I do these days because the peace I have, the peace and the happiness, it's worth everything in the world. I have no fear. I feared everything. I was a killer, but I feared life. I didn't like myself. I wasn't comfortable with myself. Now I love myself. I love life, and life is what you make it. I just choose to make mine great, and every day gets better, and I wish everybody could feel like this. Find God. That's your first start. You find him, he will lead you to the peace. Quit worrying so much. I was a worry. I worried about everything. My life was ruined so many times. Worrying does no good. And 80-90% of the time, nothing happens that you're worried about. It doesn't really happen that way. So you just got to accept things. I accept things now. That's the big one. I let go of all my resentments. You have resentments from 20, 30 years ago. What are you doing holding on to them? Let them go. Move on. It's in the past. And that's it. You know what I mean? I just, one day at a time, I'm happy as hell, and I'm at total peace. And I feel great physically. I need, for me to be mentally strong, I have to be physically strong.
Right.
And that's why I do it, people. Don't tell me to relax. I want to be mentally strong. So therefore, I'm going to kill myself to do it. And I just love everything about it. That's it.
I can personally attest to what you're saying about never turning down a fan. I don't know if you remember this, but the day after the fire, when you were still in the hospital bed, gray and covered with soot, couldn't see your eyes, you were responding to me. So I know for a fact that you care about each and every one of your fans. I have one last question for you. As you know,
Glad to hear that. It was a couple of days after the fire because I was in a coma for 2 days.
okay, that's right. It was when you were hugging your daughters. And you even were messaging me a little bit before that. I have one more question. As you know, I aspire to inspire people with my story, and that's why I do these interviews. If there's somebody watching right now who's going through addiction, alcoholism, mental health struggles, and maybe doesn't know who to ask or how to ask for help, what would you suggest for them?
Hey, it's simple. You better find out who you got to ask. I tell people I will help anybody, but when they do reach out to me, the only thing I can tell them is, look, I can't do nothing for you personally. I'm not gonna pamper you and take it easy on you. I get right
Hmm.
to the point. It's very simple. You're an alcoholic. You're a drug addict. I can tell by what you just told me in your story. The
Hmm.
only chance you have, the only chance, and it's very, very slim. Only 4% of the people that check into rehab.
Yep.
I'm one of the 4% that stayed sober. And that's the only chance these people have. They got to get into rehab. They got to open their ears up. They got to shut up and listen and learn how to live life sober. And once you do, it's the greatest thing you could ever imagine.
Hmm.
Everybody's always worried in rehab. Everybody's like, it's going to be so boring. What are we going to do? Hey, man, once you figure it out, you can do anything sober,
Yeah.
anything. And then, I go around and I'll sit at the bar at B Dub's Wings just to get my food. But I'm sitting beside a lot of alcoholics, and I talk to a lot of them because they want to meet me.
Hmm.
They tell me what they're up to, and right away I let them know they might want to look into getting some help
Yeah.
because it'll kill you.
It'll kill
Jail,
you quick.
institutes, and death. That's all this disease offers. And really, drugs and alcohol, they're the medicine for the
Hmm.
real problem.
Yeah.
The real problem is your mind. So you got
Hmm.
to figure out what's wrong with your mind, and you won't need the drugs and alcohol to make you feel good, to make you
Yeah.
happy. But you can do it. Don't be afraid to get a therapist. I got a therapist in rehab, and it was the greatest thing. I never imagined that I could have so many questions for a person,
Yeah.
and they have the answers. The answers are rather simple, and I'm pretty proud that I consider myself almost a black belt in rehab. So I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. That's awesome, Mark. I don't have any more questions for you. Is there anything else you want to share before we go?
No, all's good, man. Everything's
All right.
great. Everything's great. Just like I said, everybody, if you're struggling, get help. It's the
Hmm.
only chance you have. And if you're positive, stay positive always. And you're lucky enough to get through it. The truth is, they say it gets easier. I questioned that for a long time because it was brutally hard for a long
Hmm.
time. But then, no, it does get easier, and life is great.
Hmm.
And I'm very happy being sober. Very happy. I ain't missing a damn thing. I ain't missing nothing.
Yeah.
That's what people, they don't realize. You're not gonna miss nothing, man. You're gonna save yourself something.
Yeah. Mark, that was awesome. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your time with me. I know I've been harassing you for quite a while. You don't have to worry about that anymore. I'll get this uploaded and I'll send you a copy. If for any reason you don't like it, let me know. I'll pull it down. Um, I
We'll be
consider you a
good.
friend. I consider you a friend at this point, Mark, and I know you consider me one as well. So thank you very much for sharing and enjoy UFC Tampa.
All right. Thank you. You have a good night, brother.
You too, Mark. Thanks. Bye.
See you. See you.